Hi, you all, and welcome for Chapter 1, Observation and Documentation for CHD 213, Child Development Trends Seminar. To provide children with a safe and nurturing learning environment and to maintain program effectiveness, teachers must incorporate observation, documentation, and assessment into their daily routines. To be a truly effective teacher, you must develop skills and strategies that are grounded in best practices. In this episode, we are going to focus on the following objectives. Explain how observation and documentation can be used as a key strategy to ensure intentional teaching. Number 2, describe how to effectively use observation. And number 3, summarize how to objectively document the interactions that you see and the conversations that you hear. It is important to note that becoming a skilled observer takes time and practice, and that learning how to incorporate observation, documentation, and assessment into your regular routines and daily duties requires some thoughtful consideration. So I'd like for you to join me, Mrs. Murph, as we learn all about observation and documentation, the key to intentional teaching. Observations are conducted every day in early childhood classroom environments. Intentional teachers use their observations to plan and implement curriculum, set up engaging learning environments, monitor the children's social interactions, track behaviors, communicate with families, and assess each child's progress and development. Essentially, observations help teachers to be more accountable. The role of observation is to provide teachers with information and evidence that they will need to make informed decisions on how to best support the children in their care. To truly observe a child, you must be present, knowledgeable, inquisitive, and intentional. With every observation, you will sharpen your skills as you learn how to effectively gather objective evidence and detailed data. Observations can be spontaneous or planned. Spontaneous observations occur all the time. According to Piaget, children require long, uninterrupted periods of play and exploration so that they can discover things for themselves. If we truly believe that children are capable of socializing, problem solving, and creating complex systems with rules, then we can successfully use spontaneous observations to capture a child's development as it unfolds naturally. Now let's discuss planned observations. Becoming a skilled observer takes practice. Since your time is limited and you cannot possibly observe everything, incorporating a planned observation will help you navigate through your busy day, and you will be able to gather information more and more specifics, like gather more specific evidence that you're looking for. Some questions that you may want to ask yourself as you plan for your next observation. These include, when should I observe? Where should I observe? What observation method should I use? Who should I observe? And what will be the focus of my observation? What am I looking for? One of the cornerstones of a high-quality early care and education program is the practice of observing, documenting, and assessing children's development. When we document children's learning and collect key artifacts, we create tangible evidence that we can share with the children and their families, along with administrators and stakeholders. There are many ways you can record and document children's learning. In fact, you should attempt to utilize several methods as part of your regular observation routines. To safely store your collected data, you will need to have an organized system in place. As you collect observation evidence for each child, It is vital that you date everything so that you can organize it chronologically. Knowing the whole child, you are better equipped to build on each child's individual interest, and you are more apt to plan developmentally appropriate activities. Whether you collect evidence through spontaneous or planned observations, you will use your documentation to ultimately assess a child's learning, growth, and development. Intentional teachers must learn how to write objective observations. As you observe, it is best to write down all that you see and hear and report just the facts. It takes practice to learn how to separate facts from opinions. Bias is a prejudice in favor of or against one thing, person, or group compared with another, and it is usually considered to be unfair. Biases, we all have them. Biases stem from our upbringing. Every interaction and every experience we have has shaped us into the people we are. To some degree, our biases influence our beliefs and behaviors. They sway our attitudes and they can affect our personalities. As intentional teachers, we have to recognize our biases so that we can treat all children with the respect that they deserve. So as not to lose our objectivity, it is important to keep an open heart, an open mind, and a clear lens. As intentional teachers, one of our primary roles is to empower children and to build meaningful relationships by creating warm, caring environments. So let's take a second right here and look at this slide about recognizing your own biases and kind of common mistakes that you should try to avoid. Making a conclusion, observing something and saying something like Billy can't do anything for himself because he's the youngest in his family. You're just making a conclusion. Making an assumption. Labeling children. Comparing one child to another child, focusing on feelings and emotions. Sometimes like Max looks so sad today, Jax looks so happy as he slides down the slide. And also adding options. Martha really likes playing dress up. She is in the dramatic play area every day. Suki is shy and never says anything during circle time. That's adding options. Every day, teachers observe, record, and capture essential moments in a child's development. The evidence and artifacts that are gathered are then used to plan curriculum and assess development. As a key element to being an intentional teacher, we must also consider the perspective of the child. Consider this. Does the teacher's presence change the context of the child's experience? As a student who is learning to observe and document a child's development, is it important for you to consider, understand, and follow certain guidelines when observing children? By following these guidelines, you are providing the children you observe with the respect they deserve while ensuring their dignity and safety. The centers and programs where you are observing are trusting you to act with integrity while you are at their site observing the children. Lastly, families will appreciate that you have their child's best interest at heart. So here's just a few observation do's and don'ts. So as you are in centers this semester and then in semesters to come, you might want to remember these types of things. The do's are, like we said, date things, put the time on there, record the children's names, only the facts. Do not put in any subjective information, only objective, just the facts. Record what you see and what you hear. And record them in the order in which they occur. You can make quotes that the children collect those exact quotes that they say. Use a variety of observation methods. You be attentive and alert. Make sure you're using all of your senses as you're observing. And know what the child can do rather than what they cannot do. That's very important. And also kind of keep a low profile and respect their space while they're playing, because if you're right in their business, especially if you're trying to do a really good observation, you're right in the area or right up in their business, sometimes you will interfere with the actual what would be normal for the child. Okay, so don't interfere, don't pressure them, and don't prompt them. Don't record anything that you don't see. Don't record anything you don't hear. Do not label behaviors, actions, or feelings. Of course, we said earlier, avoid all of your bias, those subjective type things. Don't use exaggerations. Don't summarize the information. Put it down just as it happens. And don't use generalizations. Generalizations are when we group like things together, like all boys like to play in the block center. Well, that's a generalization. So let's review what we've learned. To become a skilled observer takes time and practice. You will need to figure out your rhythm so that you can incorporate observation and documentation into your regular routine. As an intentional teacher, you will want to plan systematic observations so that you can document each child's unique qualities, interests, developmental strengths and needs, as well as uncover their cultural practices and approaches to learning and play preferences throughout the school year. As you gather the evidence, you will want to be as objective as you can, and you will have to recognize your own biases. As you collect your documentation on each child, you will want to organize it in a chronological manner and store it safely. Lastly, be sure to observe every child in your class. Be aware that some children may catch your attention more than others for one reason or the other. So that will wrap up this episode of Chapter 1. You can learn more about this topic by reviewing the resources posted in your Blackboard course. As always, if you have any questions, you can please contact me or your instructor to get some clarification. So thanks for joining me, Mrs. Murph, as we learned all about observation and documentation, the key to intentional teaching. See you next time.